Hi, my name is Rachel, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my favorite book, which is Furyborn by Claire Legrand. And it's up here. I'm not taking it down and holding it. I'm not about that business. Shit's heavy, man. The Empyrean trilogy by Claire Legrand follows two women living 1,000 years apart. Long ago in this land, the dark angels, which they're not really angels, but whatever, they're angels, and they roamed this land just like wreaking havoc until the seven saints rose up and defeated them and locked them away in this like prison type thing, and there's a gate. And angels spoke a prophecy that the imprisonment wouldn't last and that two queens would rise up, a blood queen and a sun queen. These two human queens will hold the seven powers of the saints combined. One is destined to save the world and one is destined to destroy it. Our first main character is Riel. Riel has powers and she has kept them a secret for her whole life until assassins come for her best friend, who is also the prince, and then her secret gets out because she uses her powers to save him. So after her secret gets out, she has to prove herself to be the legendary Sun Queen, and she is put through all these magical tests and trials, and if she fails, they're going to execute her. 1,000 years later, our second main character, Elliana, works for the Empire, and she is a bounty hunter known as the Dread of Orlean. After her mother goes missing, she teams up with this rebel captain, and she learns that the Empire that she works for is pretty corrupt. You find out how Riel and Eliana's stories intersect, even though the worlds that they live in, or the times that they live in, sorry, are 1,000 years apart, and you learn how their lives affect the world that they live in. So a little bit about the world building. I think it's excellent. I love the split timelines. The chapters go back and forth. So I think that writing this way was really smart on Claire Legrand's part, because you see the world as it is 1,000 years previous and then 1,000 years later. And this allows you to see the world in two different timelines, which just builds how the world is then and now, and it makes the story richer, and I just think it was excellent. I'm already failing to be articulate. This is my favorite book, so this review is going to suck. You also get a bit of history prior to Riel's time. This helps you to get invested in the story more, I feel. You see the ups and downs that the world's been through, and the politics get really delved into and fleshed out, and that's a big part of the story, is the political intrigue. The politics of Riel's time, it's definitely different than 1,000 years later in Eliana's time, but you don't feel like, oh, I don't care about this, this is history. You get invested, or at least I did. I got very invested and I thought it was very important, and I really appreciated all the detail and the twists and turns, and even though technically Riel's time is come and gone, it's still interesting and it feels like it's happening while you're reading it. There's also religion tied into this world, especially in especially in Riel's time. There were these seven saints that got rid of, the dark angels. Now in Riel's time, there are churches that worship each of these seven saints, and they're very important to the world in which she lives in. The magic system is tied into these saints, and so the magic system is a part of the religion. You get like a whole index in the back on the different saints and the different magics and the elements, and it's really cool, and she just created such a intricate magic system, and I really appreciate it. There's a lot of books with elemental magic systems, but this one is definitely my favorite elemental magic system. She also added non-human races like the angels, which are dark and powerful. They're not tied to any religion or god, so they're not like the typical angels you've seen in other books. There's also some monsters and some mythical creatures, and they're really fun and fascinating. Alright, a little bit about the writing. So the alternating chapters, I think, make the pacing great, but a lot of people disagree with me on that. Some people say that the pacing is so incredibly painfully slow, and they hate the alternating chapters, but I feel the exact opposite. So I guess it just depends on your preferences. Having a break between each main character, I'd feel like, oh, I want to go back to Riel's point of view, but then as soon as I get into Eliana's point of view, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not ready for another Riel chapter. I want to see what happens with Eliana. So I thought that was really smart writing on her behalf. to make the alternating points of view because it makes you want to stay with the main character that you're in with both main characters. At least that was my experience. A lot of people prefer Riel over Eliana, but I like them both. I might lean more towards Eliana if I have to pick one. But I really enjoy both of their chapters, both of their points of view. I think they're both excellent, and they both have a different voice. Like it's obvious that they're different people, and I really appreciate that. There is a focus on the plot rather than the romances. There are kind of romancy elements to both, more so on Riel's part. But the romances here don't detract from the story. They add a little bit of value to the story, I feel. So that's not something I say very often because I can be very critical of too much romance in a book because it's not my thing, especially in a fantasy setting. But here, I don't mind it at all. There is sex and it can get graphic, so if you don't like that, if it makes you uncomfortable, you might want to steer clear and skip those chapters. There's a bug in here. Like, oh my god, if it's not my kids, it's a damn bug. So there is sex, yeah, so if you don't like that, if it makes you uncomfortable, it doesn't bother me. It's not something I look for in books, but it doesn't bother me, and I thought that it was written fine. There is also talk of consent, which is really important, and I feel like it was really well done here. There's also talk of birth control, which is something I rarely see in books. There are quotes at the beginning of each chapter, and they're like from another book or from a song or from another character, and I really appreciate the excerpts from the book within the book called the Book of the Saints, the Seven Saints. This is really good writing. It's something I love when authors do, like when J.K. Rowling does it with the Tales of Beedle the Bard. I feel like that's a really good way to enrich the story. When you see it done well, you find yourself wishing that these books existed so that you can get further into the lore. Overall, I just feel like Claire Legrand writes very eloquently, and she paints a beautiful, vivid picture of both time periods in this world that she created, and the differences between those two time periods and the differences between our two main characters. Okay, so about the characters, this is where people have a lot of trouble. People tend to like strong female characters, but they like them to also be likable. So a lot of people like, I'm going to bring up Sarah J. Maas. A lot of people like the Throne of Glass series because Aelin is very funny, and they somehow find her, relatable, and her unlikable qualities are kind of overshadowed by her likable qualities. That's not how it is in Furyborn. So in this case, we have two characters, two women who are deeply flawed. They explore this gray morality in their own thoughts, and it's also explored throughout their stories in the book. So they would be considered unlikable characters, but I always try to ask myself, when we're talking about an unlikable character who's a woman, would we like these characters if they were men? Just something to think about. The first line that sucked me into this book was somebody's talking about Riel, and it's in the future. They're talking about Riel, and they say, in her final moments, some say the queen went out scared. I like to think that she went out angry. And I was like, I'm hooked. I'm attached. Because angry women, I'll take it. The beginning of this book is actually Riel's final moments. It's a hell of a way to start off. And then the rest of that book, the rest of that book is leading up to and along the way of her journey, how she got to where she is at the beginning of the book. So it's kind of twisty, turny, wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, but it's highly enjoyable because you already get sucked in, or I should say I already get sucked in at the beginning because I'm like, this is an angry woman who went out angry. How did she get there? What happened in her life that led her to this point? And that's like very drawing in. So I don't really understand why people don't like these characters, because I felt drawn in almost immediately by these stories of complex, angry women who are morally gray and dealing with some really terrible shit in this amazing, lush, vivid world. And even though you know how it ends, you're still so invested in her story. I keep saying you, but when I say you, I'm talking about me. So let's just get that out of the way now, because I'm going to keep saying it. She struggles with this inner pull towards darkness. She has her own sense of justice and morality, and it conflicts with the others around her and their sense of justice and morality. She can be extremely self-centered, but at the same time, she loves her two best friends more than anything else, and she would die for them. She would give up anything for them. Their whole complex relationship between the three of them is amazing. Okay, no spoilers. Anyway, Eliana. Eliana, up to the beginning of the book, has been like this untouchable badass. She's a bounty hunter, but her one weakness is her family. She has a mother and a younger brother that she lives with. So when her mom is kidnapped, she has to team up with this rebel captain, and she has to be put in this place where she learns about how corrupt the empire that she's working for really is. I find Eliana very realistic, how she's put in this position and she's like, well, now frickin' what? And how she reacts to everything after being this like untouchable badass, going to this place where it's like, everything is shit, my mom's gone, I have to take care of my brother, I have no job, I'm teamed up with this rebel captain when I'm not part of the rebellion. I find her very realistic. A lot of people don't like her. If they like the characters at all, they're more pulled towards Riel and not so much towards Eliana. I don't feel that way. If I have to pick one that I like more, it's Eliana, but only like this much more. But as this is a review of a favorite book, I can't actually tell you why I'm pulled towards her more. I don't know, it's just how I feel, and that's that. She's just so like amazing. Like, she put all of her dreams on hold and she was just like, F everything, I have to find my mom, I have to take care of my brother. And she was this person who didn't have to give a shit about anything before and now has all this crap on her plate, and it's so overwhelming, and she's still such a badass, and she's also pretty funny, and I love her. Learning that you work for a super evil empire is pretty conflicting. She's kind of an anti-hero, she's morally gray, I dig her. There's also amazing side characters, but it's really hard to talk about them without getting spoilery, so just know that they're wonderful, and that's that. The villains, it's so hard to talk about them without getting spoilery. I really don't want to spoil any villainy type stuff for you. There's like a evil angel and an evil bounty hunter and evil politicians. That's all I'm gonna say. They're so good. It's so good. Just read the book. Just read it. Okay, so I'm gonna get in the spoilery part of my review. I forgot to tell you in the beginning that I normally do spoiler free and then spoilery. So up is coming the spoilery parts. I don't really have a lot of articulate things to say because, like I said, this is my favorite book, so it's really hard for me to like articulate anything when I like a book. Everybody has this problem, I feel like, on BookTube where it's like, oh, we hated this book. Let me list all of the reasons alphabetically and in subtext about why I hated it. And it's really easy to talk about that, but it's really hard to talk about when you love a book, why you loved it, because there's just this inherent like connection you have to a book you love that's really hard to explain. And that is 100% how I feel about Furyborn. Okay, here come the spoilers. You have been warned. Okay, so let's just start off with like the female friendships. Eliana and Navi are just, I love them so much. Why are they so great? Real articulate. I'm doing a great job. Have I sold you on this book yet? The non-female friendships, when it's like female-male friendships, are kind of, I mean, obviously Riel's friends with the prince. Why am I forgetting his name? Oh shit. His name is Audric. So yeah, their friendship obviously turns into a romance. Obviously she doesn't have a friendship with Corian. He's super into her. She's kind of into him, which I'll talk about that in a second. And Harkin and Eliana are the freaking worst. They are not friends. They tell themselves they're friends and then they like go and have sex. Like, obviously there's feelings there. You guys aren't friends. So, and then there's also Tal, which there's like hints of Tal being into Riel. It's like, is there a single friendship in here between a male and a female that is not with a sexual component? Oh my gosh, is that a complaint about my favorite book? It's not a complaint, it's just an observation. But the female friendships are on point. I love Riel and Ludovine. Ludovine is just a sweet baby angel, literally and figuratively. She's so great. She's so smart. And I was not expecting her to be an angel, so for that to come out of the woodwork, I was like, what the f-? That was a huge bomb drop, and I feel like Claire Legrand was like sneaky writing this, like, mwahaha, I'm making Ludovine an angel. All this time, she's been someone else. I loved it. That was just genius. Corian and his darkness are just delicious. I love when there's a component between a main character who's like not supposed to be evil, that is kind of drawn towards the darkness, and then there's this dark character and they're like, yes, join me. Obviously, I'm referring to relationships such as the Darkling and Alina Starkov. So good. Oh, so good. Mark magic. Mark, I think is how you pronounce it. M-A-R-Q-U-E. Mark, I'm guessing, right? That magic is super interesting. I just wonder how it comes from, this is not a complaint, it's an observation. I just wonder how it gets from like, oh, if you're half angel, you have the power to manipulate time. Like, I'm not sure how we got from point A to point B. But it's fine because it's genius and I love everything Claire Legrand does. I have literally no complaints about this series, just observations. I don't think there are like super interesting male characters other than the bad guys. So Simon's not a bad guy, but he's not, I mean, he's morally gray. Like, who isn't, other than Harkin, who is so boring. Oh my god. So when he died, I was just like, meh, saw that coming. He's one of those characters that gets dropped into a book to die, to further along the story. Like in We Hunt the Flame, and this book, and The Gilded Wolves, and it's just like, ugh, come on. Like, you made a boring character just to kill them off. Like, again, this is not a complaint, it's an observation. The relationships here that I love are the trio between Audric and Riel and Ludovine. I just think that's such a great dynamic. And the relationship between Elliana and her brother is just so sweet. The relationship between Elliana and Navi is just amazing. And then there are such great relationships in here. There's such great magic. All those trials that Riel went through were just, I was on the edge of my seat reading this like, oh my god, she's gonna fail and she's gonna get executed. And then like Tal would come in and be like, come on Riel, and I'd be like, go away, you are obviously a sleazebag. But not a complaint. So I was on the edge of my seat, like, and even though you know what happens to her, you know that she dies in the end after she, make sure you read the book because I'm about to spoil some shit, after she has Elliana, because Elliana is her daughter. Yeah, we saw that coming. So you know that she dies, but you're still like, oh my god, what happened until that point? Oh my god, all these trials are so scary, like she's not gonna make it. She's obviously not gonna make it. And I'm like that in every single one. Then when she sets all those dudes on fire, especially Corian, I was like, what the fuck am I reading? This is amazing. She literally killed like a bunch of people and she's super conflicted about it, but she's also kind of not. I dig it. With the mark magic, going back to that, because I have no structure in my notes, it's just like spoilery. I like this. It's all garbage. Going back to the mark magic, so you think like, okay, if they can manipulate time, and obviously like that's a huge benefit, then are they going to go back in time and change all this shit? So is that how Riel's actually going to go out? And so you're wondering like, what's going to change? Who's going to, take them back in time? How is this going to work out? So that's really exciting. You don't really see a lot of time travel in fantasy such as this kind of book genre, but I like it. I dig it. I mean, none of it happened in this book, but yeah, time travel is dope. Like, do more of that. Write more of that shit. Okay, I don't have anything else in my notes, my shitty notes, to say. All I can tell you is that this book is amazing and I freaking love it and you should read it. And I've tried to keep this as non-spoilery for also the sequel, Kingsbane, which is right here, and is just as freaking good. I mean, honestly, I don't even know what to say. I'm going to do a review on that as well, and then I think I'm also going to do a like expectations of what's going to happen in book 3, which the name still hasn't been announced. I think once the name and the cover gets announced, then I'll be like, alright, here's my predictions for what's going to happen in book 3. So yeah, obviously this is my favorite series. I'm sad to see it come to an end. I think Claire Legrand is a genius, and I want to hug her and ask her a bunch of questions, and yeah, she's amazing. So I guess that's it, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!